So hello everybody, my name is Tom Herr. I'm sales associate for Precision Flying Tackle and also guide and educator for the shop, and I work out of Lancaster, the Lancaster shop, and I'll be up in Erie on the tributaries guiding for steelhead for about mid-October up to Thanksgiving, and the shop asked me if I could do some videos of some of my favorite patterns that I use up there, and this stonefly, little black stonefly that I tie on a 14 or a 16 size hook, really fits the bill with this. So again, it's using Semperfli materials except for the tailing, which is Goosebites, but it's size 14 hook with a bead on the front of it. I'm using Semperfli's Nano Silk thread in 12-aught black. It's one of the best threads on the market. This is actually white, but this is the thread that you want to use. I feel strongly that this is the finest thread on the market. Extremely strong. It'll bend a size 8 streamer hook. When you use it though, you do want to use bobbins that have ceramic tubes on it. A couple reasons: because after use, this thread can cut through metal tubes, and also the metal tube, when it gets a little nick in it, it can fray the thread, because it is a GSP style thread. So having said that, the tailing for this, what I call a Semper stone, is Goosebites, and there's a couple different ways that you can tie these Goosebites in that people like to use. You can either take them and you cut 2 of them off at a time, and you can either mount them on, tie them in on either side of the hook, but it doesn't give a really good profile to it, because these tails, I like to see them spread out in a V shape. And there's a couple different ways you can do that. Again, the first way is to just tie these tails on the ear side of the hook. And what they'll do though is they won't spread. They'll just lay alongside. Another way, which is fairly popular, but I don't think it's as durable, is to cross these biots into an X. Once you get them crossed, hold them, if you can see like I'm doing there. Hold them, lay them on the side of the hook, not on top of the hook. You want to lay that cross on the side of the hook, right where your thread is at the start of the bend. And then when you to tie these in, you got to bring your thread up right where these Goosebites cross one another. If you're a little bit back, it's going to close them up. If you're a little front, it's going to close them up. It's got to be right directly at that crossing. And when you make that wrap around, those Goosebites would naturally just turn to the top of the hook shank and they'll be in position. It takes a little while to get the hang of that. A simpler way to do it is to simply take some black superfine dubbing, and you don't need much, just a small pinch. As you can see there, it's hardly much at all. Dub that on. And again, if you have trouble with the crossing, cross and tying that cross on top of the hook, this is a simpler way of doing it. A little bit of dubbing, as you can see there, on the hooks. In fact, actually that's a little bit too much, but we'll go with it. Don't go any further down on the hook shank than where I'm at, just at the start of the bend. And all you do is you tie a little ball right at the bend of that hook shank. And then what you want to do with those Goosebites, they all have a natural curve to them. Okay, you want to take the curve and take it outward, and you lay this Goosebite right along the hook shank and tie it in right in front of that ball of superfine dubbing. And what that'll do is that'll flare that tail out. Lay the Goosebite alongside the hook shank, grab it with your thumb and finger, pinch it against the hook shank, bring your thread up, take a couple wraps, and you can see there how that turned that tail directly out. Simple, okay? The next tail, a nice thing about doing it this way too, versus the crossing over method. The crossing over method, if you have stubby fingers like I do, it's hard to get that small tail, that small cross, by crossing them over and tying them on top. With this dubbing, you can really adjust the length of it and get these tied in exactly how you want it. You lay one on the other side. As you can see now, I got both tails tied on, and they're V'd out right where I want them. And this type of tailing for this fly, and actually like a copper john, I think by doing a little ball of dubbing like that, makes the tails more durable. The ones that are crossed over like that, they tend to bend, they tend to break off. Where this, I think, yeah, I've really never had any of them break off. They do bend a little bit after a couple fish, but they're easily straightened. So once you get that in, that's actually the hardest part of this fly. Right, bring your thread back at the start-in point. Semperfli has a material called flat braid. I use 1/16 black, as you can see here. It's just a flat braided material, synthetic. Cut a piece of it off. This is going to be your body. As you can see, that's the material. It's just a flat braid. Tie that in at the hook bend. You don't really have to worry about the material sticking up from the excess, because it'll flatten down when you wrap this, and just wrap that over to form the body. As you can see, this Semperfli material does make this fly pretty simple to tie. If you want to taper the body, you can wrap it forward with the flat braid, take it back halfway, and then forward. That will taper the body, but to tell you the truth, I've never really seen where a tapered body on this fly really makes a whole lot of difference. Cut off the excess. For the wing case, pheasant tail. Pheasant tail does make a very durable wing case. My apologies for the phone call. You lay this pheasant tail, you cut off some fibers, tie it in by the tips for less bulk. If you tie it in where you cut it off next to the rachis of the pheasant tail, the stems, the slips are a lot thicker. So you want to tie it in by the tips of this pheasant tail, leaving enough tied in that you can grab it and trim off. This is for the wing case. Grab the tips and trim off. Now for the legs. Semperfli makes a material, again, Semperfli. It's called micro legs. It's almost like a straggle string or straggle legs. I don't use black. I use what they call lichen material, or like a brown or even a gray works. It gives it a little bit of a difference in color. And I really do think that this is kind of what triggers this fly for steelhead to take. It's also got some flash to it. So you take a piece of this, tie it in right in front of that wing case. Take your thread up to behind the bead. Wrap your legs in. Tie it off. Pull the wing case over. Trim off. Whip finish and you're done. As I said, when I tie patterns for Erie, and I go through a lot of flies up there, last thing I want to do is when I go back to the hotel and tie a difficult pattern, or one that doesn't take me more than a minute to tie. And they got to be effective. And this fly here is always on the end of my tippet. And I've caught, over the years, I've caught a lot of flies, or a lot of steelhead on this black stone. And since Semperfli came out a few years ago with this flat braid and a straggle string, it's just made it so much better. One thing about the thread that I'm using, the 12-aught thread from Semperfli, when I'm whip finished any fly that I'm using it on, I always do a double whip finish. So that is the Semper Stone. It's a very successful pattern that will always be on the end of my tippet up in Erie. Thanks for watching.